know, the Mayans disappeared. No one knew what happened to them. Also, there were several Indian tribes that disappeared. What it was that the Mayans were highly advanced civilization, and they were able to control this to the point that they shifted their entire civilization to this other dimension in mass. And they were advanced enough that they could see in the future to see that the next big event would be when the entire planet moved into the other dimension. See, this is why they had their calendar stopped at 2012, because they could see this was the biggest event ever to happen in history. And they stopped their calendars at that time.
Flames! I spit for flames! Flavor Flav, ionosphere, iconic waves. I ain't a slave, I'm unashamed. Jesus Christ, save! Flesh and soul intertwined, rhyming until the end of time, which is now. Interdimensional time shift, blissful insurrection of the Lord's will, being filled, more thrilling than mad pills. All I see through the mesh is MCs burning on fire, burning flesh, rather smelly like my dry come from the telly. Nigga, you can't see me, I'm the Wonder Man, and you're Stan. Wham, ba-ba-bam! All you see is gun smoke, nigga, you a joke, take my hand, I'm throwing you riddle and rope. Grab it, Rabbi Coke, hey, dope's only mo. Rest in peace, you've all been deleted. Pull out your cams, hoes, cause I'm Cosmo Combat, play bat bit, defeating all Joes. Like mowing the lawn, yawn, all these hoes whacker than Bob Saget. I'm Mr. Gadget when I rap, and y'all just a bunch of rats. Dag nabbit, rabbits, dag nabbit, I grab it, I go get it, NJ swag. I'm smoking up all bag, big ass niggas, tennis racket, smack. Flow so unequivocal, low, low, hell no, cash honey. Cause money is only cash money with Twin C, honey. You know it's running blood, worse than a hill of blood. Ill flow so unforgettable, buried so hysterical. Electrically infusing rhymes in your minds, spanning the continental divide. There's no end to my madness. This shit spans for a while. I fuck menage in the snow, and I make Wayne forgettable. Let Jekyll hide rhymes, my innocent rhymes shining like sweet lime. Leaving hell bent, reticent rhymes from the devil with all his lies. Chastised and fried. My niggas, I'm your lifeline. I shine, time is of the essence, and I'm quintessence. This shit is ill, flow, glowing, luminescence. Day and night, I'm filled with that fifth element, composing all heavenly bodies. Niggas, I can't die, believe it, I've tried. Survived experimental suicide twice. Sevens, back-to-back gamble, rolled the dice, ultimately to confirm my omnipotent superstitious notions. Crushing Newton's third law of motion. I'm the mad scientist, Frankenstein, crushing all Zionists. Piss on the Zion like I did to suicide. I'm bombing JC's homeland of Palestine. Emphasize the role of Jesus as Savior. Fuckhead, bag and flamer. Zionism is a crime. You're fired for real. Fake ass piece of shit spit on your face. Erase the disgrace, taking up the rap rank in a blink. Best kid MCs are gone, erased, faceless and maced. Pesticide shooting through the room, killing demons like bended spoons with my telekinesis tunes. Enveloping your spirit, resurrecting your soul, separating your flesh, enmeshed with the Zion-controlled matrix. Man, magic tricks are for kids. I eat that shit like barbecue ribs. Freeing your heavenly body so lobbyists can't indulge your mind. I'm divulging the mind end of time in my rhymes. Transitioning your subconscious mind to accelerate high-frequency alchemic healing, creating mastery and mastery and ascension, ripping, splitting, and drifting you into the fifth dimension. Coaxial splitting, swiftly shifting the ages, planting seeds that hatch like spawn, blowing my trumpet, bump it, don't run from it, now is the time, like the sunrise dawns, spawning, dawning the age of Aquarius. A time of no time, manifesting a new dimension for reality to be apparent, creating the illusion of being stuck in time, warping Earth through a rapid shift of space and time, placing hot lead that invests the infestation. Shut it, muscle cover it, lock it up, shut it, hit it, rip, spin it, split it, lift off, fit it, cat rap, spark and sing. I got it, burn the crap in the rap ring, burning force, firefighter, overnighter, lighter, engine swag, Brock Lesnar, UFC fighter, space rider. Fast forward, rewind, play, replay, play. Wait, hold up. You just threw up. You're gay. Fast forward, replay. I'm one of a kind, rhyming faster than the wind. Queen kid, Jen, and this kid. Passive, zip, dip, skip, flushing all this shit. Rapping till y'all rappers quit. Defined by my rapping killer rhymes, y'all shake. Cause Twitchy makes all MCs die. I'm spitting bars, smoke one like a cigar, break you, don't take me, look, they break, start, they break, spray you. Go ahead and change your faces, cause this ain't a face off. I leave you all face splits.
So when I've got the person under, and they were at that time when they moved to the other dimension, and they're very happy there, I said, well, why did they come back into a human body? They said they were here to help the rest of us make the transition, to blaze the trail, to show the way. And we're all in the middle of this process right now. 2012 is building up to that. It's not the end, it is like the height. When we get to that point, you'll know something is definitely happening. It's happening now all over the world. People are getting it finally. But at that point, it's a separation with the old Earth and the new Earth. Everyone won't go because they can't change their vibration that quickly. If they're still in the negativity, they'll be left with the old Earth. They said they'll be left with what they created. They'll stay there. They'll work out their karma there. They won't move into the new Earth. This began about 2003, and we're in the middle of it right now. The new Earth is where all the violence will be. You have the volcanic eruptions, the earthquakes, all of the natural earth disasters are going to be on the old Earth. Now they said those who are interested in this, those who understand what's happening, the ones into metaphysics, the ones who are thinking along this line, will definitely go to the new Earth. Everyone will not go. The ones who are still into negativity, who are stuck on the wheel of karma, who are very, they're doing all these awful things, like you're talking about the greedy and those, they will stay with the old Earth. They will stay with what they created. But the new Earth is happening now. The vibrations and frequencies are changing. And it's going to move into a totally new dimension. Now, when that happens, it's a separation of the two. This is what's very hard to understand. I've asked them many times, and I keep asking more questions. They said, we don't have all the answers because this has never happened in the history of a universe before, that an entire planet will shift into another dimension. They said it's the greatest show on Earth. The ETs, everybody in space is watching this to see, can we pull it off? It's a big thing that's going to happen. And the new Earth is going to be glorious. It's going to be wonderful. And that's where the majority of us are headed, as long as we understand what's going on. This is what's happening now, the awakening, the enlightenment of what is happening, because you can feel it in your bodies. And people out there who have these symptoms, they go to the doctors, and the doctors can't find anything wrong with them. All it is that in order to move with the planet, our bodies have to change frequencies and vibration also to match the planet. And when this happens, body can't change the frequency all at once. It would destroy the body. It has to be done gradually in stages. This began in 2003. And you may feel these symptoms for a few weeks or so, and then it'll level off for several months. Then it'll do it again as you progressively raise the vibration. Some of the symptoms people are experiencing is heart palpitations, high blood pressure, dizziness, joint aches and pains, muscle aches and pains, depression. This is because the body is undergoing this and they don't understand what it is. In 2012, people keep saying it's the end of civilization. No, it is not. It's the end of civilization as we know it. See, we're living in a very interesting time right now. We are moving into a new Earth. The old Earth is becoming too polluted, too corrupted, too environmentally unstable, and a new Earth is being created. And what is happening, we are involved in it right now. It started in the year 2003. The vibrations and the frequencies of the old Earth are changing in vibration, and we're moving into another dimension.
When I got the Divine Matrix, I thought, you know, let me look through this, and I couldn't put it down simply because it is exactly that. Because most of our listeners, Greg, aren't going to be like you. They're not going to travel the world looking for this. They're not going to read every biblical text. They're not going to. They may want to, but chances are they won't. But something like picking up the Divine Matrix, for instance, you don't have to. You actually can benefit from Greg traveling the world, and you see this, and you see how, first of all, how scientifically true this is, and second, how you can apply it to your life immediately. Whether you're sitting at your cubicle, you're sitting in traffic, that you actually do have this power that, yeah, Jesus was talking about 2,000 years, and yeah, they were talking about thousands of years before him, and this power that you have to create and shape your reality at every given moment.
Well, and the way that is coming about, you know, for a lot of people, they'd like to believe it, they want to believe it, and they say, you know, how can something like the non-physical experience of a belief in our heart affect our physical world? And this is where the new studies are just so fascinating. What we know, Steve, is the world around us is made of energy. Everyone knows that. Primarily electrical and magnetic fields that come from this quantum stuff that holds everything together. So we can think of the world as largely electrical and magnetic fields of information. And this is where it gets really interesting, because in our bodies, the largest generator of electrical and magnetic information in our body is the human heart. It's not the brain. And this surprises a lot of people. The brain creates electrical and magnetic fields, and we all know that. But what people don't often know is that the heart has about 100 times the power of the brain to create electrical fields, and over 5,000 times the power of the brain to create magnetic fields. So our hearts are creating electrical and magnetic fields, and here's where this gets really interesting. Our own physics, you can go to any standard physics text, and the text will tell you if you change the electrical information in the field of our world, or you change the magnetic information, you change the atoms in that field. And what makes it so interesting is that our hearts do both. Our hearts change both the electrical and the magnetic information much more than our brains do. And that's why our hearts, where we have the feelings and the emotions, can be so much more powerful than the brain, where we simply have the thoughts. This is why it's not enough to simply hope for a better world, or hope for, or wish, or say, I want a better life, I want a better relationship, I want to be healed. The language that this field understands doesn't necessarily recognize your brain saying, I want or I hope. What it does recognize is the field of the heart that feels as if these things have already happened, that feels the peace in our families, in our world, that feels the healing and the joy in our bodies. And when our hearts feel those things, we're literally creating the belief waves, the electrical and the magnetic waves that are changing the stuff we're made of, and they're changing the stuff our world is made of. And I think this is the great message of our masters in the past that they tried to convey. And where this is so important now is that the best minds of our time tell us that we're at this pivotal point in human history where we've got to make some choices right now that are either going to affirm or deny our survival as a species on this planet. And it sounds like a daunting task until we understand that we all have a vote. Everybody has input into this field through the language of the heart. The key is we have to understand that language, and we can explore that through the rest of our program today. And we'll talk about that when we get back. You're listening to Empowered Living, Life, the Truth, and Being Free. We're speaking with Greg Braden. He's the author of The Divine Matrix. You can check out his website, gregbraden.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. You're listening to Empowered Living, Life, the Truth, and Being Free. I'm your host, Steve Maribili. For more information about A Better Today, our speeches, programs, and seminars, please visit abettertoday.com or stevemaribili.com. Please sign up for our newsletter, and also you'll find our live event schedule there. We're all over the country and Europe as well, so feel free to check it out at abettertoday.com or stevemaribili.com. We're speaking with Greg Braden. He's a New York Times best-selling author of The Divine Matrix, giving us his powerful insights and wisdom from his over 20 years of research. Greg, we were talking about power before we went, and the power of belief, and I pointed out to you during the commercial, when you read the Bible, God continuously says, believe this, believe that, believe this. Mm-hmm. But whenever God's serious about something and really wants you to know, he specifies, says, believe in your heart. And when Jesus is teaching his disciples how to pray, they say, how come it's not working for us? And he says, well, listen, when you pray and ask for something, act as if you've already received it.
Absolutely.
And you'll be given whatever you ask. And this is what I say is there's a difference between believing and knowing. And when you do believe in your heart, that's the knowing. That's the knowing there. And when you're acting as if, that's walking in that confidence. And you've kind of aligned yourself at that point.
Absolutely. And this is, again, this is the power of going back even into the original text. When we go back in to the original Aramaic, which was the language that Jesus' words were recorded in before they were translated. And we do this in our books, a couple of different books. We talk about this. You go back, and there were 2 or 3 sentences that were completely left out of the translation, and they just happen to be the sentences where all the juicy stuff is that tells us, that actually tells us how to go about doing these things. And the bottom line to all this, Steve, what we know, what our own scientists are telling us, is the way we feel about ourselves changes the chemistry inside of our bodies, and it can either heal us or it can make us very sick. And in the medical journals, it comes up in discussions of what's called the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. So we know, and that's reasonably well accepted, that the way we feel about our world and our relationship with our world and life, those feelings translate to the chemistry inside of our bodies. Now, and a dear friend of mine, Dr. Bruce Lipton, has done some pioneering work. His book, The Biology of Belief, describes this in very readable terms. He and I tour together all over the world, and our work dovetails very well because it's the same beliefs that change what's happening inside of our bodies. Now our document is changing what happens outside of our bodies, and this is where science and spirituality, where that line gets a little fuzzy, because it says that the world around us, this quantum essence, these fields of energy, can be influenced. They can be changed by changing the way we feel about what's happening in our world. And when we understand that feeling is based in our hearts, this isn't a mental process, and this is a very subtle, that's a very, very powerful distinction. This isn't about positive thoughts only. Thoughts are important.
Right.
It's not just about an affirmation. Affirmations can be important. But what we know is the power of human emotion is the fuel that brings those thoughts and those affirmations to life. It's what imbues them with life and our feelings and beliefs. When we truly believe something to be true, we've got a strong feeling about that belief, and that is based in our hearts, where we create the strongest electrical and magnetic fields in the human body that extend beyond our body into the world around us. And when we really understand that, all of a sudden, this conversation about our relationship to the world and what reality really is, all of a sudden that conversation changes. And to me, that's very exciting, because we're at a time, as we mentioned before the break, we're at this time in our world when we're all being told, something has to change, and it's not up to a handful of leaders in a couple of countries to make those changes. If we want peace in our world, we've got to be peace at the family dinner table, because the field is mirroring that back to us in different ways. If we want nurturing, relationships, we've got to be that nurturing for other people so the field can mirror that back to us. We've got to feel as if those things are already present, and that's the great secret that we find in those lost biblical texts.
Hey. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. All right? You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
Greg, before we went to break, we were talking about biblical books and how these self-empowering books were taken out. And I do notice that in the New Testament, and you have Jesus walking around and doing his ministry, there are hints at it, but they're subtle messages that are easy to skip along. There are very self-empowering terms there, but people, because the other books aren't there, because the other seeds haven't been planted there, kind of skip over them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and it's. I think any of our listeners who have ever read our biblical text will have a sense that although it's a good text, it feels like something's missing, that's incomplete. And the best scholars, the best biblical scholars of our time, freely and openly admit that our biblical text, it's a good text, and it is incomplete. A perfect example is in the book of Genesis. In our King James Version, we've got about a sentence that talks about the origin of humankind. It says that God created man from the dust of the earth, breathed the breath of life into the nostrils of man, and man became a living being, which is all accurate. But it's tremendously condensed, and when you go back into the original text before the edits, Steve, it's amazing that they were originally scrolls. These weren't bound books, and there's paragraph after paragraph, column after column in these scrolls that have now been recovered that talk about how we were created and how our souls are created separately from our bodies, and how the first bodies of humankind couldn't hold the power of God's light, what is called God's light, or the soul, or a higher consciousness or a higher dimension, or whatever language we want to use, that the body had to be the perfect recipe for our DNA, had to be discovered to hold that power in this world, and we miss all that. And this is, to me, part of the value of going back into the texts that were edited. And I wasn't in that council, and maybe there were good reasons, and maybe not, as to whether or not they were included in the actual biblical text. What I believe is whether they're in the Bible or not, they're valuable, and that we should have access to them for our own reading edification, just to flesh out the story, whether they're actually part of the Bible or not.
Which was the original intent. I mean, these were written by people who were sharing this tradition. The actual edit was more of a political move. The fact that it was a council, tells you that it was a political move, and it took away, the edit served its purpose, but the original intent was just to share this wisdom.
It was a council. It was a largely male council and a male-dominated religion. It was a new religion that they were trying to really bring the world into this single focus of this way of looking at things. And I've had the opportunity to read some of the letters from the bishops that were involved in this editing process, and even they, in their time in the 4th century, they questioned. They asked the question. They said, "What if this thing called the Bible catches on? And what if this new belief called Christianity gets popular? What are the implications of us taking this material out?" So we acknowledge that they were humans and that this has happened. Now, the question you asked right after the break was, even in the New Testament, which is also good and also incomplete, when we go back into some of the other documents, such as the Gospel of Thomas, which we find, I've actually been to Egypt and seen the original manuscript, and it's a beautiful manuscript written largely in Greek, in Old Greek.
It's kind of like a best of Jesus.
It is. It's as if someone were following Jesus, a scribe, and every time he said something, really cool, he said, Master, say it again so I can write it down.
Right.
The words of Jesus. But what Jesus says when we go back into the Gospel of Thomas and other documents, these are not relegated only to Christian documents, but in the words that are so very clear, Jesus is telling us about prayer. And what he's saying is that prayer is a language that communicates with this intelligent energy that he calls the Father. And he says, when you want something in your life, if you want health, if you want abundance, his words are actually be surrounded. He says be. It's not what we do. Be surrounded. Be enveloped by these things so that your desire can be full. And when we be, that's the feeling, as if our healing has already happened, or the feeling as if our abundance, our spiritual, our material abundance is already there, or the feeling as if peace has already happened in our world. And what we now know, people say, well, this is subject to interpretation, it's very subjective, and I would agree as a scientist. However, the flip side of this now is that our own science, under laboratory conditions, are validating these principles that when we feel a certain way in our bodies, not only does it change the chemistry inside of our bodies to create either healing or the opposite of the healing, it goes both ways, but that we literally change the atomic and the molecular structure of physical matter beyond our bodies through this language of human emotion. And this is just an awesome realization. I'm surprised it hasn't made the cover of Time magazine and CNN, but I'm also not surprised because the discoveries, Steve, they're shared in such complex scientific language, a lot of people just don't understand what these experiments are actually showing.
Which is why things out, like I was mentioning earlier, things like your book are so helpful.